He's the star. Richard Bazzi from Schultz Ford, schultzford.com. I'm Bubba from 100.7 Star. And boy, do we have a star with us today. If you've lived in Pittsburgh for any length of time, you know Merril Hoge, not only as a world famous former Pittsburgh Steeler, but you're touring the country with your Find a Way tour. Welcome to Cars, Stars, and everything in between.
It's good to be with you guys, man. I'm looking forward to this.
This is great.
Merril, I don't even know where to begin. First of all, you don't have to just live in the city of Pittsburgh to know who you are. You're well known throughout the world, actually. You have so many different layers. And Bubba said to me, and somebody else this morning said, "What are you going to talk to Merril about?" And I said, I really don't know. I don't know how to pick. There's so many different layers to you.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know which one. I mean, there's one of the stats I saw was you played 122 games consecutive in the NFL. In the National Football League, how the heck do you do that? I don't know. I mean, the speed, the violence. And we talk about, you've come through health issues. You've come through so many things in adversity. If you were retitling any book, and you've written books and you're an author, if you were going to retitle everything, throw everything out, start right now today, what would the book about you be called?
I'd still be Find a Way. Honestly, it's interesting that you're referencing this and I don't know why it would just come up here of recent, but about a month ago, actually I was just by myself. I believe in self-reflection is a critical component of growth for people, where it's just you and you check in with yourself, you challenge yourself. It's how you grow. It's how you evolve. It's how you find out the truth about who you are and where you are. And are you doing your part? Are you not doing your part? Is there more in there? If there is, go get it. But I don't know if I was asked it or it just came to my thought process when I was going through. When I go to speak, there's always different things that I have to do to get ready, depending on the audience. And I don't know exactly how it came to me. I don't think I was asked it. I was just thinking about it. And I was like, the thing that probably taught me the most about myself was when I got told I had cancer, and that the treatment that I was going to go through, if I survived it, was only a 50-50 chance of survival. And that right there probably had told me more about myself, because I had just read a book about a year prior to it, almost to the day, quite honestly. And I remember closing the book on this fight with cancer. I can't remember the guy. And I just remember the brutality of it and how he endured and all the things he went through. And I closed the book and I went, oh man, you know what? I could never do that. There's something right there. I'll just admit right out front. I mean, this is prior to all this. I'm like, man, don't give me that I could not do. Okay. I've done some things in my life that I almost lost my hand and arm when I was a kid. I survived that as a kid, which I thought was the most dramatic thing I'd ever deal with in my life. And that ends up becoming the most minor thing I ever deal with. But I was like, I could never do that. And I was like, you know what? I got to worry about that because my health, my lifestyle, my from genetic family history, we have no cancer whatsoever. So I was like, shoot, that's not even something I need to worry about. Poof, thank goodness. A year later, man, I faced that door and faced that challenge. And it did exactly what I thought it would do initially, man. It folded me like a tent. Two things overwhelmed me, if not consuming. I was chemotherapy and dying. It encapsulated my mind. I was overwhelmed by it. It had me what I call the dark days of diagnosis, because it wasn't just the first day. There was many days to come. And there is one thing. I understand the sting of death. I lost my mom as a kid. So I understand how losing a parent can wreck a home and change lives. And that process got me thinking, because I had kids at the time. My kids were 9 and 7. And I thought, well, and the thing that I have loved most in my life and my journey is love being a parent. I love being a dad. I've loved that. I love being that what they call me Poppy today. I love my grandkids and that next step and layer to that. But I remember I told my kids, I thought, my kids are not used to me being sick and bald laying on a couch. And how do I get ahead of that and help them with that process? And I shared with them what the doctor shared with me. Then I went right back to that darkness. And it was my daughter who worked way across the room. And I was so caught up in it. This is how dark I was. I mean, how caught up and overwhelmed I was. She was in my lap with her dainty arms trying to get my attention. And, you know, she finally does. She moves my neck. And if I look at her and she said, well, hey, Dad, you better find a way then. And
Wow.
you know what? I just
Wow.
like those words
Oh
gave
my
me
God.
hope.
I have Merril, I have goosebumps literally over my entire
Wow.
body right now from
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Wow.
honestly, that shift, those words had helped me. They came up. The words really find a way were about when I pinned a goal up as a kid to play in the National Football League, and I was revisiting all the things people said to me, how hard it was, the odds, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Oh, that's impossible. And that's why I see things through a child's eyes more than most adults do, because the people who were supposed to encourage me were the very first ones to discourage me. But in that process, and I didn't realize that it was my first moment of really self-reflection. I didn't put the goal up to be words on a wall, but the more I was letting those things consume me, I was like, gosh, dang, you know, it was the words find a way that shifted my mindset. They gave, that was the first time words ever gave me hope and an energy and a vision to go do something, like take action. Like they just sparked a journey.
Have you told her
And
that, Merril?
no, my daughter and I, honestly, I don't think many 9-year-olds would have possibly done it. Like Corey, my daughter is a really, we all think our kids are the best in the world, and I'm no different. But like, if I just separate her, and I'm not a parent for a second, just a personal evaluation, like a human being, I'm like, she is such a good human being. She's been like a little angel from day one. When my career ended, you know, a lot of people didn't know that I went into cardiac arrest in the locker room. I was in intensive care for days. I had to learn how to read again.
Never knew that.
Yeah, I think because it happened in the locker room. You know, the thing that happened to Tua, even though Tua didn't go into cardiac arrest, but the kid in Buffalo, his name's escaping me right now. That dramatic, yeah, okay, that is a dramatic scene. Well, that happened in the locker room.
I had no idea. So what happened to Damar Hamlin, who obviously is from Pittsburgh, happened to you in the locker room?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Most people don't. It was the doctor. I remember. So they rushed me to here's what happened. I go into cardiac arrest. They start to attempt to resuscitate me. I start breathing again. I actually stand up and walk to the ambulance. Now, I don't know all this. I don't remember any of this. Okay. It was all told to me later. I just remember the doctor came in. I could see it in his face, though. I could see it because I don't remember it was the next day because I was so out of it. And he looked at me and he was like, man, you scared me. I thought, 20 years of doing this, I never thought I'd lose a player, but I thought you'd be the first.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And then he was telling me what had happened. I'd almost knocked myself out again because I broke my hand 2 weeks ago up in New York, and I just created a brace for it. We created a brace. Well, they knew I wasn't going to be playing for a while, so they put a cast on my hand. I went to scratch my head. Boom, about knocked myself out again because I didn't realize I had a cast. Man, it was a train wreck. Anyway, she was like 2 years old, and like when I'm telling you I had to read again, like I couldn't. I was as depressed, and I did nothing. I was in the dark, really, really dark space in my life. That's why I understand about mental health, challenges, but I also understand this is about 97% accurate. The person that is responsible for the very first step, regardless of your emotional state, is still you.
Wow.
It is still you.
Yeah.
But anyway, just to finish that up, though. So when those words again inspired hope, and then what I was able to do, I used all these things that ever helped me live a dream, to fight to live, and I realized just the strength that a human person does have if they'll go get it. I am no different. I'm not unique or different than anybody else. We have all the one tool that matters, and that's this right here. Do you control your mind, or does your mind control you? And there's our arduous challenge every day. But the more you learn to control this, the more powerful it becomes, the greatest asset, greatest tool it is on planet Earth. And so that it just comes down to ownership in a person's life. Do you want to take that ownership, or do you want to run from it the rest of your life? Once you take it, you put all the trash behind you, and man, it's a clean path ahead in how you want to make it. And I learned that from that. I don't know that I learned that from being able to play in the National Football League and having that dream. It was that ultimate challenge that I had to face and find out who I was.
All right, everybody stand by. Unbelievable. Merril Hoge joining us for Cars, Stars, and everything in between.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow is right. I didn't think there was going to be anything that I didn't already know.
No.
Wow.
Hang on.
Wow.
This break.
So powerful.
Wow. And stand by. Stand by. Just saving. Wow. Wow, that literally gave me goosebumps. Well, and I'll take this off the air, and this is nothing compared to you, but I coach a lot of baseball, and I coach high school baseball, but I also coach a 501c3 nonprofit that we teach high level baseball to the underserved and underrepresented communities in
Good for
Pittsburgh.
you.
And they're all kids that maybe they don't have good families, they don't have the finances, or whatever it might be. And one of the things that it's so funny when I read that, and a totally different level, I always say sometimes there's nothing I can coach, there's nothing I can train, but sometimes you just need to find a way to. And so when I read that, I was like, wow. And my son, I'd say it all the time. So when I told my son you were going to be on, I said that was the name of your thing. He goes, wow, I've heard that before. Because that's kind of my thing.
Well, really, everybody's doing it. Everybody has it. Everybody's dealing with something.
Find a way. All right, here we go. 100.1 FM, AM 1020 KDK. This is Cars, Stars, and everything in between. He's Richard Bazzi from Schultz Ford, schultzford.com. Merril Hoge, if you missed this first break, talk about inspiring and goosebumps. Richard, just unbelievable. You said in between segments that you said there you didn't know if there'd be anything that you would learn about Merril Hoge, and we learned everything about Merril Hoge.
Yeah, you didn't hear me speak much, and when's the last time you heard me speechless?
Merril, that may be a first. Congratulations, you left Richard Bazzi speechless.
We made history together. I like it.
No, and I don't know. I mean, it's not the only obstacle you've faced in your life.
No.
You started. You went to school in Idaho, right?
Yeah, I went from kindergarten through college in my hometown. I didn't know they played football outside Pocatello, Idaho. I swear that I did. I was like, I saw it on television, but I was like, I really don't know if they do this outside. I've never been outside the state, really.
Where did you where was the idea of playing in the NFL born? Did you have family that played? Did you have anybody?
No. So I have to paint a picture. I don't know how old you guys are. You might be able to, okay. This happens in 1973. And the reason I say 1973, then I have to paint a picture of 1973. So here's the picture I paint of 1973. My dad was a milkman. My dad got up at 4:30 in the morning. He delivered milk to people who left empty bottles in a container on a porch. You would place that with full bottles of milk. Like you didn't go to the grocery store and get milk.
Right.
I didn't want to do that. And not everybody had a television in 1973. It is not like today's world where they are plastered all over the wall. There's thousands of hundreds and hundreds of channels and options. We had 3 channels, 2 knobs, an antenna, and no remote. And so you had to select the right channel before you got comfortable on the couch. And if your parents watched television with you, if you were alive back then, you end up becoming the remote. Hey, change the channel. Hey, go change the channel.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's how I know people around 1973. But it gives you an idea of access that we just didn't have. The phone that we're doing this right now is bolted onto a wall, and all you could do is call people. You couldn't Google, FaceTime, text, or search things. It didn't exist. You had to go to the library. So we didn't. That's what existed around 77, 73. So it's the first time and we had a rule in our home, we could never have the television on Sunday. So I never saw football until I went to my grandparents' house because they always had their television on, and it was a Sunday. And this is shortly after I was 8 years old, and I got asked one day, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? And I remember thinking, wow, I don't know. But, I started looking around and, thinking of things. It's the first time the scope of my little mind had been widened to something I would never thought of at that age. And I thought it was interesting. And I was like, oh, I wonder what I would want to do. So I go to my grandparents' house. I walk in the kitchen. I look to my left, and there it is. It's football and television, and the Green Bay Packers were playing. The big deal wasn't the Packers. I don't remember who they were playing. The big deal was I had never seen football on television, and I'd been playing it in the backyard. I had just signed up for it. I was going to play it for my very first time, and I had no idea they were doing it on television. And the second I saw that, man, it hit me. I now had an answer. That's where it all started.
That's
when I saw it on television.
It really is unbelievable. But then you go to university, and were you drafted?
Yeah, I was drafted by the Steelers in the 10th round. I didn't think I'd get drafted by the Steelers. You know, an interesting story. I went to the combine. 10 days before the combine, I get the flu. I lose like 15 pounds. I am sick as a dog. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to look like skin and bones when I get there because I was so sick. In fact, I spent more time putting together all my prescriptions for what the medication they had on me because they warned me, like, listen, you don't want a false positive here. You don't want to be taking something that's going to be that's going to come back. And so I was sweating bullets on that. So I was getting my doctors and they're putting all the prescriptions together and everything that I was taking. So I went over to my drug test. It wouldn't come up for something illegal or something wrong. And so get flagged for that. And I didn't realize this until actually just this year was the first time that I'd heard this. I didn't realize that 1987 was the first year they did the combine in Indianapolis. When that was the first year I was there. I don't think they have any footage of that. I'm glad they don't, because if they went back and said, okay, who's the worst combine performer in the history of the combine, it would be me. I would be in the top. I'll be in the top one or two. I did everything poorly other than the 20-yard shuttle, and that's the only thing I did remotely well. But that being said, at the combine, it's like everybody comes back and reworks you out. So the Denver Broncos came and worked me out. The Raiders, where I was actually projected to go in the 5th round to, came and worked me out. Washington Redskins at the time, or Washington. The Green Bay Packers came and reworked me out. I think I might have mentioned the Denver Broncos. If I did, I just repeated them. So Denver. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, all of the teams I just mentioned beforehand, what they do is they call the university, set up the date and the time. I show up, and they put me through a full-blown workout. I come for the Steelers workout, and I go in the office, the football office, and they go, the scouts back there watching tape. Wow, he wanted you to come back to the room. So I said, okay. So I go back to the room. I introduce myself, and he goes, first question, he goes, hey, do you play basketball? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I was a really good basketball player. I was actually better at basketball than football at one point. And I loved basketball. He goes, we have a basketball team as well there in Pittsburgh, and you can play on that in the off season. You can make some extra money doing that. And I said, do you want me to work out? And he's like, nah. He goes, no, I don't. I got everything right here. He goes, this is all I need right here. He goes, just wanted to meet you. Thanks a lot for coming down here. Okay, so I leave. I'm like, okay. I'm walking out of the hall. I see me walking out of the hall. I'm walking down. I'm going back to the football office. I'm like, of all the teams that I could be drafted by, I will not be drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They care more about my basketball skills than my football skills. He didn't care about it. And he's the one who called me when I got drafted. He's the one who called me.
Who was that, Merril?
Oh, my gosh. Dan Rooney Jr. I just was with the other day. We were talking about him, and I don't even want to say, I'm guessing on his name. He's since passed, but he was one of the great scouts in the West, actually, for the Steelers. And he was just, I remember when he called me up, he just said, hey, Merril, I want you to know this. He goes, I've been jumping up and down since the 4th round to draft you. He goes, I finally got the okay. He goes, you can make this team. He goes, we need people like you. We need players like you. And I never forgot him saying that. And just a side note to that, I don't know this until later. So Chuck Noll is so disturbed that he keeps doing this. He finally stands up in the 10th round. He goes, I draft him, and walks out the door. So Chuck wasn't like, I don't think Chuck was a fan of mine initially, but it's just an interesting story about a guy who saw something and fought. Now,
did you play? I don't know how the dates line up, but did you play with Rod Woodson?
We were drafted together. He was the 1st round draft pick in '87, and I was the 10th. I tell Rod all the time, I go, listen, if they drop the 0 off of my 10, I'm the 1st round pick too, right? I tell Woody that all the time.
And by the way, if you want more information, your website is the easiest website in the world. It's merrilhoge.com, merrilhoge.com. It's just super easy to get to, and they can check out your whole story, which is just unbelievable. Richard, we've talked about this in the past. We talk about bringing guests back, right?
Well, we have to bring Merril back because I don't. There's so many more things to talk about.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
different
I'd love to
layers.
come back, man.
Yeah,
I'm always
Merril.
we
Honestly,
haven't even talked about the F-150, man. Do we talk about cars on this thing at all?
yeah, I hope so. What do you drive?
Well, have you seen the Black Widow package
Yeah,
on the F-150s?
yeah.
I put an F-150. Well, I've always had 4. I mean, the second, I don't think I bet you for 10 years it would be used. When the F-150 get really remodeled, it was about 13 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Where it really they changed the game.
Yep.
They became like every truck is trying to catch up to the F-150. And when I got it, they're like, you'll get rid of every car you got. And I'm like, yeah. And I had a King Ranch. I had a 1-ton King Ranch at the time, diesel. And I was like, I'll never get rid of that because I pulled a lot of trailers and stuff. But once I stopped pulling trailers, every other vehicle, like I tell people, if I can't put a dead deer in the back, I don't need it. And,
here's a funny anecdote to that. Do you know who Chris Kirkpatrick is from NSYNC?
Yeah.
So we had Chris on a couple weeks ago, and he's become a friend. And I asked Chris that question, and of course, his answer was he drove a Dodge, and that got us going and engaged a little bit. He came to Pittsburgh, and I sent him a Black Widow to drive for his weekend. And he came back and said, I hate the fact that I can't tell you I hate you or hate your truck. My 7-year-old has said to me, Daddy, we have to get this truck and get rid of the Dodge.
Amen. I listen, that happens. I head to head. I've done it before. I had a Dodge. I actually bought a Dodge. One of my first trucks was a Dodge, and I got the F-150, and I've never.
Yeah, it's a different world. One last thing, and I don't know if you've seen this. I saw it circulating somewhere, maybe Instagram, but a guy was getting interviewed, and the interviewer said, if you had one opportunity to sit down and ask over a cup of coffee, ask God one question, what would it be? And he said, I would say, how'd I do? And I thought that was a pretty interesting, profound question. How'd I do? And it almost feels like we touched on some of that today, and it can go so much deeper. I'd love to see you come back on with us.
We have to.
And talk about more. I want to say Merril the person, but this is Merril the person, and it's not the sports guy.
Yeah, that is. Well, I appreciate that. You said that. That's why I think when you're in moments of self-reflection, when you're checking on yourself, it's like if you're on a path right now that you like, well, then build on it. If you don't like the path you're on, change it. And you have the ability to do that. But the ability to constantly check on yourself and challenge yourself and ask questions, like one of the most important, poignant questions to find out where you really are right now is, are you doing your part? Wherever you are in life and wherever you're going, are you doing your part? You look in the mirror, are you doing your part? Only you know the truth. You can lie. Nobody can lie to themselves. You can try to lie to yourselves and you can justify things. And I say, if you point fingers, you cast blame and make excuses, you make your day easy, but your tomorrow harder. And it's when people take ownership of what they want to do and what they want to be, they ask themselves questions like that, and then they give themselves the honest answer. And if they aren't doing their part, then start doing it. If there's more in there, go get it. And when you do that piece, that's the best personal gift you can give to yourself. You have that responsibility to your journey in life. And when you do that, that's when you're rewarded. You don't get an award for it, but you are rewarded with things like peace, joy, happiness, and success. And I've seen it and I believe it because I've been on both sides of it. You can't talk about that other side unless you've been there. And I've been there enough to know I never want to be there again. And I'm never going there again.
Wow. This is Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between. Merril, thank you so much for joining us.
Well,